Blockchain Council, Corey Jones, a member of the Rhode Island Blockchain Council, and this conversation is going to be led by Sean Sweeney, who is a member of Chain Reaction Boston. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
We got the talk going. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Sweeney. I'm part of Chain Reaction. Not sure who that's coming from. We are an angel investor group that specializes in blockchain, so I'm really happy to be here. And I've got some great people who I hopefully can introduce themselves. So please, I guess we'll just go down the line. Introduce yourself. Specifically your name, your role, and your region, of course, and then what excites you the most about blockchain in your region right now. So we'll go ahead with you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. So my name is Calvin Beaulier, or Beaulier, however you want to pronounce it. I am Secretary of the New Hampshire Blockchain Council. I also serve in the New Hampshire Legislature, along with our chairman, Keith Ammon. So something that we're really excited about in New Hampshire is we're really working on making New Hampshire one of the best jurisdictions for blockchain technology and this kind of financial innovation. So recently we just passed a strategic reserve bill, making New Hampshire, we like to be first in the nation. So first in the nation for a Bitcoin strategic reserve.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And you look like you could be Keith's brother, by the way. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Mehne. I am the chair of the Boston Blockchain Association. I am also a strategic advisor to Ava Labs. Why I love this space is I just fell in love with this ecosystem in early 2019, having left a 250-year-old bank. I felt like the handcuffs were taken off. I love being at the intersection of emerging technologies and growth, and these technologies are coming in an accelerated way, and it's just super fun to be part of it with the people and firms that are trying to do this in the right way.
Hey everyone, my name is Corey Jones. I'm a member of the Rhode Island Blockchain Council. I'm also an elected school board member in Providence, Rhode Island, and a policy expert by profession. One thing I'm excited about is going into the next legislative session, we have unanimously passed our blockchain study commission through the Senate. So we'll be working really hard to get the House to also support that, hopefully unanimously. And I think we have a huge opportunity with some of the different programs at our state to try to attract blockchain talent and bring companies here to Rhode Island and New England. So thank you for the opportunity. Shout out to Cubic Labs for putting this together.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Munn. I'm with Vermont, and I'm the chapter lead of Vermont's chapter of the Government Blockchain Association. I've been a citizen advocate for crypto and blockchain in Vermont, have testified to support bills and legislation and against some actions and movement. A couple things I'm really excited about in Vermont is some of the leadership in data privacy and in captive insurance, which I think is a globally impactful place to apply blockchain and look at the ways to assess not only regulation by industry, self-regulation by industry, but also exploring ways to manage the impacts and negative consequences that can occur when things are mismanaged. So thank you for having me.
That's great. So I have the first question is really about your regions, and Doug, since you're not really, you're sort of in a group that spans all of New England, maybe you can kind of be supportive on each of these states. But specifically, I'm wondering, and we could maybe just go down the line, what exactly is your region doing, and what are the biggest opportunities that you see to support blockchain? Especially in the entrepreneur side, the funding side, the regulation side, whether that's, are you working with universities? What exactly are you doing in your particular region?
Yeah, so one of the things that I kind of hinted at earlier is one of the things we're really focusing on is the regulatory environment. If you look at New Hampshire and New England as a whole, we don't obviously have the cheapest electricity in the world, so maybe mining's not going to be that strong. But the fact is that if you look at for instance Switzerland, they're hugely involved in the gold industry. That's not where they mine the gold. They don't mine the gold in Switzerland, but all of the finance, all of the things that are happening behind the scenes that actually put those mines out there into the world, those things, the gold is being assayed in Switzerland. So really in New Hampshire, we really want New Hampshire to be like the Switzerland of crypto and blockchain technology. So creating that regulatory environment, making sure that there's a space for the market to work properly, making sure that we're not going to have regulatory capture where we come in and have a financial system that is imposed on us from above, but really have it to where, the motto you all know, live free or die, where people are free to innovate and create these kinds of new technologies. So in addition to the strategic reserve, one of the things I wanted to talk about is our New Hampshire Secretary of State's office is actually, we passed a bill in the previous session to have a framework for DAOs to be registered just like you would register an LLC or something like that. And there's actually currently a request for proposal out. So if anybody is looking to maybe, let's say you're a developer that wants to create this New Hampshire DAO registry, the New Hampshire Secretary of State is currently looking for request for proposals for that. So things like that, to create the regulatory infrastructure to where you can come to New Hampshire and you can build whatever it is you envision.
Are you specifically, how are you promoting that out to the entrepreneurs and out to capital to make them aware that you're sort of open for business?
Yeah, so that's really one of the reasons why the New Hampshire Blockchain Council was established. There's a lot of people, I think, in New Hampshire, because we have that citizen legislature where they're really focused on the policy edge, but there's not a whole lot of direct flights into Manchester. So really it is getting the word out there. So that's really why we established the New Hampshire Blockchain Council, is let's go out there and let's tell the world, hey, we're doing these exciting things in New Hampshire. Have you heard about them? Maybe come and check it out. So we're relatively new, but I mean, we're kind of in a new industry already. So we really want to get that word out. So we're working on, partnering with other organizations, going out there into the world and telling our story. So
awesome. Corey, about you? In Rhode Island.
Yeah, so in Rhode Island, we introduced 5 bills in the last legislative session, and we were able to get some significant progress on that study commission. We're hoping that going into the next leg session, we can push the privacy bill regarding holding your privacy keys and having that, not being able to have an unlawful seizure of your privacy key. As well as the Treasury, giving the Treasurer the discretion to be able to keep crypto or Bitcoin that's been seized and hold it kind of to start our strategic reserve. I think another thing that we're doing is lunch and learns with our legislators. We have an issue, and that's that we have to create that basic foundation of education for what this technology is and how it operates, because there's a lot of FUD, there's a lot of misinformation. And that's a kind of first step that we've been taking and we found to be successful. So next week we'll be kicking off our first lunch and learn for this year. And then internally we have Rhode Island startups like myself that are looking to take advantage of what the state already has to offer. And so a few of us have either worked in government or, like myself, currently work in state government. And so we're mapping out what the different grant programs are and the different tax benefits that the state offers, in the same sort of way that we would go and pitch a bioscience company to come to Rhode Island, using those same chips to try to first start internally, and then hopefully in the future we can bring in other companies by showing them what we have to offer.
So what has been the feedback from the lawmakers about your efforts? Are they receptive to it, or are they sort of kind of going along because they sort of feel like they have to?
So I think the elephant in the room is that Rhode Island is going on 20 years of a Democratic trifecta. And so right now, the Republican Party has been the one that's spearheading at the federal level crypto regulation. And so I think I have a lot of sway, because I'm a Democrat myself, an elected serving Democrat. But I think, really, there's skepticism, and then there's just that misinformation, right? The first question I get asked is, doesn't crypto hurt our power grids, right? And then I have to, try to explain proof of stake versus proof of work. And it's very challenging, right? At, a fundraiser, maybe I'm trying to explain, this deep technology difference. So I think that's the big issue, is that there's this misinformation, and then there's also this skepticism because they are seeing it as a partisan issue when really it's a bipartisan issue. We should all be supporting technology and innovation, and we should be having a conversation about how we can protect consumers and stay to our values. I try to, go from the point of the individual legislator I'm talking to. So if your issue is equity and evening the playing field, bringing in new industry is the perfect way to do that. Let's create some job training programs. Let's, support people who have been historically left out and ensure that they're the ones that are lined up to this new industry. So I think it depends on who you're talking to and making sure that you tailor your talking points to that individual legislator.
Excellent. Thank you. And of course, Vermont is home of Bernie Sanders, so.
Yeah, home of Bernie Sanders, who started as an independent. Vermont's interesting also because it's a Democratic legislature with a Republican governor. So there is a diversity in the discourse there. There's a lot of passion for things like environmental protection, environmental law. And Vermont's also the global leader for captive insurance, which is very large corporations self-insuring. And so within that framework, I've found similarly, education is key. Finding people where they're at and helping them understand how these technologies apply to what they know, and looking at things like this large economic engine in the state, which is captive insurance, and how does blockchain apply to that? How does crypto apply to that? And one of the initial conversations that's come up is about finding the opportunity to make the push for crypto assets, starting with stable coins and then expanding to other assets, to be recognized within an insurance treasury. So similar to talking about that within companies, except these insurance companies, these privately held captive insurance companies, are already quite wealthy, have a lot of revenue, and they bring a lot of revenue to the state, and they act as a leader for not just the nation, but globally in the regulation of these processes. And so that's been an area that I've been able to find traction. And then parallel to that, we have venture capital and startups and incubators popping up around the state that are focused on integrating this incubator model with rural communities and lifestyles and bridging that gap between the land and the community and technology and the startup ecosystem. And it's not about trying to say, oh, we need to bring crypto companies here. Yes, we want to bring some crypto companies here, but it's also about recognizing the valid application of blockchain or cryptocurrency to various business models and helping them bridge that gap of understanding, and then they can go out and run with it.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Fresh Tracks Capital out of Burlington, and a fascinating VC firm. They don't do anything in blockchain or cryptocurrency, but they've managed to bring a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of capital into the state. So they're doing some really good stuff. So hopefully you've got other ones.
Funny enough, there's another, I won't drop names, but there's another group that spun off of one of their younger partners that is directly invested in some blockchain crypto companies in the state. So they are loosely connected, and it's a small world.
They don't talk about that, so I guess you might have left on. So Doug, you're at the BBA. So
Yep.
You're not in a state per se, but you're in the city, sort of in the central of the region. So tell us about what you're doing that sort of spans the whole region.
Yeah, happy to. So just for background, the Boston Blockchain Association is a 501c3 education, advocacy, and as Sean mentioned a couple minutes ago, really building out that ecosystem, taking what's unique about Boston, and that has always been a unique mix of traditional, new, academic, investment, venture capital, private equity, et cetera. So really building out that ecosystem over time. I'll give you a quick, the headlines here. We run an institutional series. Many of you here have participated. We cover the entire ecosystem. We've had a number of federal regulators, federal lawmakers come to our events. We're trying to show the inside scoop of what the leaders and people and firms are doing to navigate the unknowns, what they're doing from an innovation perspective, how they're aligning with regulators and lawmakers to try to push this forward. Our focus very much is on, as I mentioned in my opening, is on the people and firms that are trying to do this the right way. And we've been very fortunate. I'm jealous of my New Hampshire colleagues here in terms of being able to get some of their legislation through, which I'm super impressed with. We have 9 Democrats here in Massachusetts. We have met with most of them, and we continue to try to go down that education and advocacy path as a nonprofit to pull them in. And my line to all of them is, please see this amazing ecosystem of people and firms that don't want to cut corners. They want the same rules of the road and frameworks that you do, and investor protection. So that we keep chipping away at this on our website, bostonblockchain.org. You'll see a evaluation of all of the lawmakers that we've done from a federal and state perspective as well. We have a university series. I call it the intersection of university blockchain clubs, of university faculty and firms hiring in this space. We have a new virtual series on the adoption of blockchain, AI, data, and digital assets in healthcare and life sciences. And we run a number of what I would call product 101s and product 201s virtually, which we call the BBA Big Bites and Small Bites.
And do you see an opportunity to expand the BBA out of Boston itself and have regional chapters?
You know, it's a conversation we talk about. What we're trying to do is, I mentioned a couple minutes ago, is just by expanding that ecosystem, we have people fly in from all over the country. We've done virtual events with some of our European colleagues. Anya right here, waving at everyone, is a professor at Boston University who has amazing depth of European regulatory expertise. So we're not trying to make a big statement that we're trying to become a national organization, but we are trying to do it through the programs, the relationships, and the unique insights that we're bringing into some of our events. The institutional series are all in person. We have one on November 12th, which will be focused on tokenizing securities at Deloitte's office in Boston. That's an institutional workshop. Kind of roll up your sleeves, break out into tables, talk about real life adoption use cases, et cetera. December 2nd at the Boston Fed again, we do our co-hosted event with the TAB group. We'll have 3 panels and 2 keynotes. Super excited about who will hopefully accept our invitation. So we invite you all to come. Many of you here in this room have been on our panels. So rather than making a big statement, we're just trying to show unique insights. So when people come, they learn something new, and hopefully they're getting some unique perspectives that they wouldn't get on their own.
Excellent, thank you. That's great. So shifting gears a little bit and maybe into more of a conversation. And I noticed that Connecticut's not here. Where's he at? Where's Connecticut, right? But how can the New England states work together to strengthen the sector, the blockchain sector, across the entire region? Have you all begun a process of, interstate discussions and things of that nature?
Well, I'll jump in, and first off, as the chapter lead in Vermont for Government Blockchain Association, that's a global organization. So I took that leadership role in Vermont. They're always looking for collaboration. I also am a member of Boston Blockchain Association, and so through those resources, I gain the assets of connections with people that I can then refer to. So if I'm talking with a legislature or a company that wants to do something, I can make a connection in my network or find a piece of educational material, or colleges need educational content, and connecting them and finding those ways to interweave. And so those resources, I think, are invaluable to really seeing what's outside my region and seeing how, in some cases, I can use Vermont as a platform, and in other cases, I can use these partnerships as a platform for Vermont.
I think there's a huge opportunity. I mean, we are collaborating a bit. We could be doing more, but even from a Boston perspective, New Hampshire's been amazing with their legislation. In Rhode Island, you've been amazing at penetrating your lawmakers to get them drawn into the programs that you want to be a part of. And from an education perspective, those are things that we in Massachusetts can absolutely learn from. I think we just have to continue to make an effort to collaborate and understand what are the unique propositions that we can leverage.
I also think that, we have some great collegial institutions. And, when you go to a university, you go and you graduate, you go where the jobs are. So I think that we can all be building in cohesion around attracting talent and creating good pipelines to the great institutions that we call universities. So, for instance, MIT is a great pipeline for software developers. Rhode Island just created a cybersecurity center at the Rhode Island College that'll be a great pipeline for cybersecurity experts. And so I think finding out how the different ingredients that we all have come together to create a great recipe is going to be key, and that right now is the best time for us to do that work. So I look forward to working offline with all of you to make that happen.
Yeah, just jumping off that, that point about education, if you think about New England as a region, that's really something within the United States and even the world. New England really distinguishes itself altogether as a region, as a center for higher education. So that's a great point. I think if there's something we could all work on regionally, being tied into New England ISO, guys, don't want to work together to maybe bring down the cost of electricity? Maybe something we need to do here. Energy is a big problem in New England. I think that's something where we can collaborate regionally. I know there's some people in New Hampshire that are grumbling about maybe we should just go and build our own grid. But I think that's something that regionally would help all industries, especially blockchain technology. One of the things I would say, kind of the way we look at it as maybe friendly competition. I think within the region, New Hampshire has its own reputation. Sometimes we kind of like it when the other states don't do things that we're doing because it provides a strategic advantage for us. And you can drive up 93 and visit one of our fabulous liquor stores to find out firsthand how that economic model works.
That reminds me, I have to take a trip with New Hampshire. So, a couple of you mentioned universities, and I'd like to kind of pivot over to that. And then, if anybody wants to ask some questions, we'll leave some time at the end for that. But specifically, as you stated, we have a huge number of universities. And so from a state perspective, are you doing anything to push blockchain down into the universities, further education, pushing for, professors to be hired or classes to be added or anything to that nature that might, eventually pay off in the long run to the state economy?
So in my profession as Chief of Policy and Planning for our State Workforce Board, I work very closely with our universities. And one suggestion that I've made to the council is that we could be scouting potential faculty members that could be serving on the council and could be playing a role in the work that we're doing. I think when you recruit those people into the fold, it gives a lot more leverage to be able to make things happen within those institutions.
Yeah, and I've specifically partnered with some curriculum providers to make that available to other partners within the state, primarily focused on economic development orgs that are talking about employment and job growth and diversification of the job market, because I feel like that's a smaller window to get into. And then through those connections, there have been some universities offering blockchain courses, but the comprehensiveness of that course is where I think there's opportunity to grow. And as the job market starts to demonstrate these skills and employers start to recognize some of the value in these skills, that's where it creates the demand for the universities to provide that education.
Yeah, I mentioned the university series that we're running. I think we've done 6 or 7 events in the last 2 years. The whole point of this series is to provide feedback from the 3 legs of the stool, if you will. So for university blockchain clubs to be able to provide feedback to the faculties of these same universities, for these students to provide feedback to the firms hiring in this space, for the firms to give feedback to the faculty on what are the skill sets they're looking for, to give feedback to the students on how do you prepare, how do you build your network, what are the skills, what do internships look like, and the students give feedback to the companies as well. I can't navigate your website. I don't know where to look for a new opportunity. And we ran a hackathon and business case competition 6 months ago. We had 13 universities participate. URI participated, by the way. So we had great prizes coming from the companies that participate in this series. So we're trying to do that to bring these communities and networks together, and through that share these perspectives to each.
Yeah, I was just going to add, our membership director, Carter Snay, I mean, he works with UNH regarding blockchain technology. So really, higher education, academia is definitely an area we see for growth, for partnership. We definitely want to get these ideas out there. One of the things, our membership structure. So we offer a radically discounted membership rate if somebody is a student to encourage, people to check us out, see what we're doing. So education is absolutely critical. And I mean, not just in academia, but we alluded to it earlier, is educating other people, not just legislators, but educating the public at large, because even in New Hampshire, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about what this technology is and who's advocating for it and what it does.
Yeah, and that'll take us to the last question. And just very quickly, I think sometimes blockchain and crypto, and we've seen some of the other speakers here at this event, is maybe lost on the sort of the common person. They don't necessarily understand what it is. They're a little lost there. So are you doing anything in particular to try to push the messaging in a simplistic way down, that this is good for the state, good for the region, good for the economy, good for jobs, good for your students, for your children? Is that happening now? And if it's not, is that in the roadmap to be done in each of your states? I mean, let's start with Rhode Island. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think there's still a lot of work to do in that sphere, specifically just because, great ad campaign and comms campaign costs money. But as individuals, we certainly have been. I often get phone calls from my colleagues that are like, I didn't know you were into AI and blockchain. Tell me about it, right? Is this gonna, be heavier on our grid, right? Can you explain to me, why I read that these things are bad for the environment and how, what is your rebuttal to that? So we're also putting together a plan to go to small businesses and work with them on setting up payment rails as well. So there's a little bit of work that we're planning and a little bit of work that we're doing as individuals. But I think once we're able to kind of secure the the funding that's necessary, pushing a good comms campaign will be important.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm passionate about, but at the same time, there's a lot of really important things out there. So I find that sometimes it's more valuable to push on the important things that we can impact today and then sprinkle in how blockchain relates to that, how AI relates to that, how the path to the future looks relative to housing, employment, other infrastructure needs. And those are some of the big challenges, investment in our education, investment in our healthcare. How does that relate to blockchain? How does that relate to AI? But first, we still need to invest in the fundamentals today and supporting that infrastructure. So I think that's been what's worked for me personally, and also what I think is important to keep in mind when talking to any population, any common consumer or citizen, to help them understand they don't have to understand the technology to understand it's important to what's important to them.
New Hampshire, and Doug, you can finish it off?
Yeah, sure. So just real quickly, they always say politics is downstream from culture. And if you look at, for instance, the Satoshi Nakamoto and the political philosophy that originally inspired Bitcoin, it had this sort of libertarian philosophy. So it only makes sense that in a place like New Hampshire, it has sort of a libertarian bent to it, you would have a little more early adoption. But the fact is, and what we emphasize, is that this really is not a partisan issue. This is an emergent technology that's going to benefit all of humanity, regardless of your political affiliation. So now it's filtering it out into the broader culture. And we're starting with, educating particularly stakeholders, people in the industry, regulators, maybe people in traditional finance, but really trying to get a broader understanding of this is just a new technology, not necessarily something that is going to be a threat, but actually an opportunity.
Excellent.
Well said. Born and raised. From a BBA perspective, we're trying to appeal to both ends of the pendulum. As I mentioned, the virtual 101s that we do are all about product education, some market education, some specific use cases. On the other end, the institutional events are much more targeted at professionals in this space. From a lawmaker perspective, we continue to try to get our lawmakers to want to engage. We've offered to bring on some events that they can participate in, so we will continue to do that. Just last plug, if I may, just would encourage everyone, whether it's Vermont, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts, we're all volunteer armies here. So please sign up, join us, get on a committee, pick the subject that's most interesting to you. We would all welcome the help, and as our old colleague Mike Wise used to say, all boats rise with the tide.
Well, thank you, everybody. I wish we had more time, but I think they robbed us 20 seconds at the end. So thank you so much.